one-time best friend of Meghan Markle, whose children were given prominent roles in the royal wedding, who Jessica herself and her husband sat in the front row as St. George's Chapel right across from the royals went absolutely kaputs overnight after a stupid social media bust-up back.
Publicly broke down between Meghan and Jessica when a Canadian influencer accused Mulroney of racism back in 2020. Mulroney evoked Meghan Markle in her apology/defense and
I was looking for any reason to get rid of her friend. And you can't help but wonder why. How did this relationship sour so quickly in the span of just a little over?
It's the end of 2025, and Jessica Mulroney's life looks nothing like it did 5 years ago. Her marriage is unraveling after 16 years. The career she spent decades building never recovered from the scandal that erased her from television almost overnight. And while she's quietly navigating a divorce, she's also watching Meghan Markle relaunch herself. Netflix projects, glossy branding, carefully framed narratives about authenticity and truth. That contrast is impossible to ignore, because behind the scenes, sources claim something has changed. People close to Jessica say she's no longer carrying things the way she used to, that she's been opening up in private conversations, sharing stories she kept buried for years, stories about her friendship with Meghan that paint a very different picture of what really happened during those Toronto years. And when I say different, I don't mean misunderstandings or hurt feelings. I mean alleged betrayals that, if true, would explain not just the end of a friendship, but the slow collapse of a marriage.
One thing I noticed about Meghan is that most of her friendships actually have a use-by date. They have an end date, which is highly unusual, particularly when you see the amount of friends that have a use-by date.
According to multiple independent sources, Jessica has been telling close confidants that Meghan crossed lines inside her home, inside her marriage, while presenting herself publicly as a loyal friend. Claims of manipulation, of secrets kept for years, of trust that was allegedly broken long before the world ever saw the fallout in 2020.
The first time it went up online revealed Archie and Lily's face for the first time in 3 years. Can you believe that? The first time Lily's face has been fully shown since 2022, when an official portrait was released for her birthday. Archie has not been shown in a photo since the Sussex's Christmas card in 2021, although there was that picture of the two of them.
And now, with her marriage ending and her career already gone, sources suggest Jessica is questioning something she's never questioned before. Why keep protecting someone who didn't protect you? Because if even part of what she's allegedly been saying privately ever becomes public, it wouldn't just damage reputations. It would completely rewrite the story of who Meghan was before the spotlight, and why some people close to her are reportedly watching this moment very carefully. And that's exactly where the story really begins.
I don't want to be doing another bloody segment on Meghan Markle at Harry, right?
Before titles, before scandals, before carefully curated public images, Meghan Markle arrived in Toronto in 2011 as a relatively unknown actress, starting a new chapter on Suits. That's when she met Jessica Mulroney, and almost immediately, something clicked. This wasn't a casual industry friendship built on convenience.
Well, he seems to be. And it seems like that lady is a temptress. She's a siren. She's lured him into the rocks.
I haven't heard that term in a while. She's a harlot, almost.
She's, well, harlot's bad, right? She's just powerful. She's
actually, that's a good point. Harlot and temptress.
Yeah, I think harlot's
comparing melons to apples.
The definition of a harlot is a prostitute.
Yeah, that's a whole word.
I take that back. Yeah, it's a her.
It's a her. It's a her. Yeah, I don't think she's that.
No.
Which she,
no.
Wasn't there some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time? There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early 20s.
Wow. No.
Meghan didn't stay on the edges of Jessica's life. She moved straight into it. Dinners became routines. Vacations turned into traditions. Photos from that era show them inseparable, laughing on European trips, celebrating milestones, constantly reinforcing the idea that this was real sister-level closeness.
It's gone to. Meghan is a slug that leaves trails of slime everywhere, and she gets found out systematically.
Meghan wasn't just spending time with Jessica. She was around her husband, around her children. This wasn't a friendship with boundaries clearly marked. It was access without limits. For nearly a decade, the public narrative stayed the same. Two women supporting each other, growing together, protecting one another as life evolved. Jessica defended Meghan repeatedly. Meghan leaned on Jessica as she navigated a new country, a demanding industry, and a rising profile. And that's what makes everything that comes later so unsettling. Because when someone is that embedded in your life, betrayal doesn't arrive loudly. It settles in quietly, right where trust once lived. And that level of access becomes far more complicated once you understand who Jessica really was in Meghan's world. Jessica Mulroney wasn't just a supportive friend cheering from the sidelines. She occupied a position Meghan couldn't have replicated on her own at that stage of her life. By the time Meghan settled into Toronto, Jessica had already built serious influence. She was a recognizable stylist, a regular presence in fashion media, and someone who moved comfortably among executives, producers, and high-profile decision-makers. More importantly, through her marriage to Ben Mulroney, she had access to political and elite social circles that weren't easily available to outsiders. That mattered, especially in a city where status travels quietly through private rooms, not red carpets. Suddenly, Meghan wasn't navigating Toronto alone. She was being introduced, included, welcomed into spaces where connections weren't exchanged casually.
This is what Meghan has been doing. She's a piece of Klingon, like she clings to somebody who can get her there. So Meghan manages to befriend one person of a very popular group, and then that person introduces her to the others. And because that she's being brought in by somebody they trust, she's welcomed in.
Luxury trips, exclusive events, and social confidence followed quickly, creating the impression of someone who belonged there effortlessly. To outsiders, it looked like natural charisma. To those paying closer attention, it looked like proximity to power. And when one person controls access, loyalty stops being optional. It becomes expected, protected, sometimes even weaponized. Because when someone helps elevate you, they don't just become a friend. They become part of the foundation your new life is built on. And once that foundation is in place, the dynamics of trust, obligation, and control start to shift in ways most people don't notice until much later.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. And I like to think that Meghan would like that. Meghan likes to be number one. Meghan does not simply degrade Prince Harry. She degrades his entire family, his entire legacy. And this is a different kind of embarrassment. She has mocked his heritage, his traditions, his grandmother, the former Queen of England, and it seems like she did so happily.
By the time Meghan's life transformed from actress to global figure, Jessica wasn't just still there, she was more visible than ever. This wasn't private support happening behind closed doors. It was loyalty displayed on the world's biggest stage. Jessica's children were given central roles in the royal wedding, a moment watched by millions. She walked into St. George's Chapel alongside senior royals, a visual signal that she belonged inside the innermost circle. Then came the Australia tour. While most friendships fade once power dynamics shift, this one appeared to deepen. Jessica wasn't pushed aside. She was brought along, included, trusted. To the public, it looked like gratitude. To anyone who understands how carefully royal optics are managed, it looked like something else entirely: endorsement. At that point, this friendship wasn't just emotional. It was symbolic. Jessica's presence reinforced the idea that Meghan was loyal, grounded, and unchanged by her rise. And Jessica played that role without hesitation. Which is why the collapse that followed didn't just feel abrupt, it felt surgical. Because friendships that survive fame rarely dies suddenly unless something underneath them was already broken. And that brings us to the moment where everything people assumed was solid began to disappear without explanation.
Is it stupidity? Is it complicity? Or is it just that she has so much on them that they have to play ball?
It's fear. She's very, very manipulative. She's very good at playing people. So, for example, William is very against her. I mean, clearly Philip was very against her. But she works on people like Camilla. She works on people like Charles.
In June 2020, the public story changed in a matter of days. An influencer accused Jessica Mulroney of problematic behavior, and the reaction was immediate. Television appearances vanished. Brand relationships dissolved. A reality show that had taken years to build was canceled almost overnight. There was no slow fallout, just sudden erasure. But what shocked people closest to the situation wasn't the backlash itself. It was what happened next. As Jessica's professional life collapsed, Meghan Markle cut her off completely. No public support, no private defense, According to reports at the time, communication stopped entirely. Sources later suggested Meghan used the controversy as the opportunity she'd been waiting for to sever the friendship for good. For Jessica, the timing was brutal. She didn't just lose a career. She lost the person who had stood beside her at the highest point of her life, and did so without warning or closure.
Been less than kind, unimaginative and frustrating, said Hollywood's Bible Variety magazine. So sickening, I almost brought up my breakfast, said the woke Bible The Guardian. Or the intimacy of Instagram, sneered the normally timid New York Times. A nauseating self-serving snooze fest, said another pundit. Well, that was me, actually.
And yet, Jessica didn't retaliate. She didn't tell her side. She didn't even hint that there was more beneath the surface. She absorbed the damage in silence. And that silence, more than the scandal itself, would soon raise far more unsettling questions.
Now take a look at this picture, chums. Yeah, can you see this? This is a very, very clear and in many people's opinion, quite a depressing picture of what's supposed to be one of the greatest love stories of this century. We're talking, of course, about the failed entrepreneur Meghan Markle, former cable TV actress, and of course the Duke, formerly known as Prince Harry. And this picture, and what I know, tells 1,000 words, as they often say. As ever, let me explain.
After 2020, Jessica Mulroney did something almost no one expected. She disappeared and stayed quiet. There were no interviews, no late-night posts hinting at betrayal or regret. Behind the scenes, media interest was intense. Sources say publishers approached her with lucrative book offers, eager for her version of events. A tell-all would have guaranteed attention, sympathy, and a chance at redemption. She declined all of it. That kind of restraint isn't common, especially for someone who had already lost her career and public standing. Silence became her shield, but it also became suspicious. People don't usually stay quiet for 5 years unless there's something worth protecting or something too explosive to release without consequences.
She'd been a deal or no deal girl. She was calling herself a model, and she was starring in a show Suits. She used to charge almost $30,000 per trip, which is why she was making good money. It wasn't on Suits, it was on her yachting trip.
Every month that passed added weight to the question of what Jessica knew and why she refused to speak. Because silence doesn't erase memories, it preserves them. And when silence lasts that long, it stops looking like dignity and starts looking like containment, until something happens that makes holding everything in feel more dangerous than finally letting it out. In August 2025, something happened that quietly shifted everything. Ben Mulroney filed for divorce. On paper, it was just a legal filing. But emotionally, it reopened doors Jessica had kept locked for years. 16 years of marriage doesn't end without reflection, and sources suggest the divorce forced Jessica to revisit moments she'd long pushed aside, patterns that once felt confusing but now looked painfully clear.
I think she was scared of coming back to this country, and quite rightly, because the people of this country don't like the fact that she's stolen our prince, and she's literally brainwashed him, blinkered him, and tied him down to his California mansion.
We're nearly out of time, but quickly, Jim, it couldn't be possible, could it, that a bloke gets sort of falls in love and...
Forbid. People close to her say this wasn't about anger. It was about clarity, therapy, long conversations, replaying old timelines with new eyes. And in that process, resentment that had been buried under loyalty and silence began to surface. According to insiders, Jessica started asking herself questions she'd avoided since the Toronto years. Not just about her marriage, but about who had been inside it and how close they'd been allowed to stand. When a marriage ends, the instinct to protect old narratives weakens. The fear of fallout changes. And the cost of staying quiet suddenly feels heavier than the cost of speaking. Because once the marriage was over, the memories people had helped you suppress had nowhere left to hide.
Well, this woman is just a master manipulator. It's the entire reason that they left the royal family in the first place. They constantly banged on about saying, we want privacy, we want privacy. Well, I don't think a 6-part Netflix series is privacy, nor is an Oprah interview. What she really wanted was control. Because she is a manipulator, she wanted to be able to manipulate people, and she couldn't manipulate the press in the UK. That's why she was angry. She couldn't force people to write the stories that she wanted them to write. So therefore, she left to get privacy so that she could write the stories in her own perspective.
This is where the story stops being theoretical. According to multiple sources, this is the part Jessica Mulroney has allegedly struggled with the most, and the part she kept hidden the longest. People close to her claim Jessica has been telling Confidence that Meghan Markle slept with her husband during the Toronto years, at a time when all three were deeply intertwined as friends.
Meghan Markle, on the other hand, I'm not going to say narcissist, psychopath, borderline, but I would say, parasite, and I would say highly manipulative. She's entered a foreign territory, literally and figuratively, and gouged something out of that territory, taken it away to another place, and is now feeding on it.
Not a rumor she heard later, not a suspicion that formed after the fallout, but something she believes happened while Meghan was still welcomed into her home, her marriage, and her family. One insider described Jessica allegedly saying the betrayal wasn't just the act itself, it was the deception surrounding it. That Meghan presented herself as a loyal friend while crossing a line that permanently damaged her marriage and her ability to trust. Sources also claim Jessica has said she kept proof from that period, old messages, communications, or exchanges she never intended to use publicly, but saved as a form of protection. According to those insiders, she's recently shown pieces of this material to a small circle, which is why similar accounts are now emerging from different directions. None of this has been confirmed publicly. Jessica hasn't spoken on record. No evidence has been released, but the allegation itself is clear, specific, and deeply personal. And if claims this serious ever move from private conversations into the public eye, the fallout wouldn't stay confined to whispers.
Harry, to put it politely, I think she is very manipulative. Meghan Markle is someone who's basically got rid of almost her entire family on her side, apart from her mother, her entire family on the father's side, including her father, which is incredibly sad. And now she's wrestled Harry away from his family.
If these allegations remain private, the damage stays limited. But if they ever become public, everything changes. Sources suggest this is exactly why people close to Meghan are paying attention. Not because rumors exist, those come and go, but because of who they're allegedly coming from. Jessica isn't a distant acquaintance. She was present for the unguarded moments, the years before fame demanded caution, the version of Meghan that never faced public scrutiny. If Jessica were to speak openly and back her claims with documentation, the fallout wouldn't be a temporary controversy. It would dismantle the foundation of a carefully built narrative.
I came to the realization that they take up more of my mental energy focusing on the two biggest dirtbags that I've ever come across. And they're my family members, they take up more of my time and more of my energy, and it's just not even worth it to even think about them anymore.
The image of being consistently wronged doesn't survive evidence of calculated betrayal, especially when it involves a best friend's marriage. Insiders claim legal options have been quietly considered, but legal threats lose power when proof exists and reputational damage moves faster than courtrooms ever could. For now, everything hinges on restraint, on whether Jessica continues choosing silence or decides that telling her truth is the only way to reclaim control over her own story. Because once someone realizes they have nothing left to lose, fear stops being an effective deterrent. And that leaves just one unanswered question. What happens if she finally stops protecting anyone but herself?
Meghan is a trained actress. What she does is that she studies people. She's not a good actress, but she is a trained one, right? She's been doing it her entire life. And there is no doubt that she studied Princess Diana. She studied her mannerisms towards Harry when he was a boy and the way that she grabs her face. And this is the psychopathic elements of what she does, putting a pregnancy text next to Princess Diana's hair, saying that she put her hands on the grave to have a conversation with her, bursting into tears.
At this point, it's important to separate what's known from what's only being whispered. We know Jessica Mulroney and Meghan Markle shared a decade-long friendship that ended abruptly in 2020. We know Jessica lost her career and stayed silent while Meghan moved on. Those facts aren't disputed. What remains unconfirmed are the private allegations sources claim Jessica has been sharing, claims of betrayal, manipulation, and boundaries crossed during years when trust was assumed, not questioned. Without public statements or released evidence, no one can say with certainty what's true. But what's undeniable is this: the balance has shifted. Jessica no longer has a career to protect. Her marriage is ending. The friendship is long over. And according to insiders, she's carrying information that could fundamentally change how people understand the past. Whether she ever chooses to speak publicly or continues to stay silent, the dynamic is no longer one-sided. The person who once absorbed the fallout for everyone else is now deciding whose story matters more, hers, or the one she's protected for years. And when someone reaches that point, silence becomes a choice, not an obligation. What do you think happens next? If you believe this story ends in continued silence, or if you think 2026 might finally bring everything into the open, drop your thoughts in the comments. If you found this breakdown insightful, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what unfolds next.